This is a video I've been meaning to make for a while now, as I'm often asked why my game looks the way it does, what keybinds I use, and what is my mouse sensitivity. I'm going to look at all my in-game controls, video settings, Windows settings, and the custom engine INI changes that I make. My hardware will be in the description below. I'm not running anything special, a very mid setup, but I get the most out of that setup using the settings described in this video. While streaming, I get a consistent 120 frames a second on most maps, 100 frames on the newer, less optimized maps. When I'm not streaming, I can get between 150 and 180 frames, so if you're not streaming, that's probably what you'd get with a similar setup. So let's dive in. So this is all fairly default, very straightforward. Enabling auto sprint is a given. The only reason you want this off is if you want to RP walk. The attack direction from movement input should be off for better swing control. Your console should be enabled. It's a handy thing to have on. A mouse sensitivity here, you can see it's turned all the way up to 10. It was originally 2.75, but I have turned it all the way up to 10. In Windows, all my mouse settings are default, and I'm using a SteelSeries Rival 3. Cheap mouse, very basic. I would recommend you increase sensitivity as high as you can handle it. It won't take long to get used to the very high sensitivity. I think it took me probably an hour or two after almost quadrupling that mouse sensitivity in the controls there. Don't have the enable invert y-axis turned on because I'm playing as a knight and not a helicopter. Chat is enabled, but sometimes you may want to disable that if you don't want to hear odd revisions of history by fans of a certain Austrian painter, so that's where that is if you want to turn that off. Head bob camera animations, these are disabled for me. It only does affect first person. Personally, I like them turned off. If you want to see the difference, just jump into first person and enable and disable them to see. Color vision corrections turned off for me here, but that is because I have the color filter turned on for Deuteranopia on a Windows level, so I don't need any color filter correction in-game. Alright, so my key bindings. I only have 4 changes from the default PC keybinds. First one is my alt attack is set to left shift. By default, this is the sprint key, but you don't need a sprint key when you have auto sprint turned on. So the other one is my cancel attack is set to Q, which is the same as my special attack. You can make them the same key, as they can't be done simultaneously. My sprint attack is thumb mouse button 2. By default, sprint attack and special attack are both Q. I separate them so I can special attack while at full sprint. So if you don't have them separated, it will do a sprint attack when you press Q at full speed, or it will do a special attack if you're not at full speed. So this way you've got control over that. So the only other key binding I have changed is the toggle third person, which is caps lock instead of the P that it is by default. That's just so it's more accessible, easier to hit in the heat of combat. My video settings, pretty straightforward here. I'm using it just a 60Hz monitor, so there's no VSync, normal resolution. I haven't done any resolution scaling. You can turn that down a bit if you are having performance issues, if you're on quite a low-end system. I have my frame rate capped at 120. I didn't see any need to have that any higher. Field of view, I believe that is default. Disabled frame rate smoothing as well. So view distance medium, shadow quality low, anti-aliasing quality low, texture quality low, effects quality low, post-processing quality is medium. Motion blur quality is off, no motion blur at all. I think that gamma is default. I think these are the lifetime settings are default as well. Ambient corpse quality low. Ambient particles turned off, I think that one's quite important. And enabled DirectX 12. I was playing for a while with DirectX 11. So this disabled, and I had a lot of people recommend I switch that on. After I did, there was a fair performance increase. I did get quite a few more frames. I think it was jumping from about 80 frames to about 120. So 50% increase in just hard frames. The NVIDIA DLSS set to performance mode, and I don't even know what that Intel XSS is, but it's turned off. So I'm going to demonstrate the GeForce filtering Sharpen Plus setting that I have. You can get into that if you have the GeForce Experience enabled by pressing Alt-Z. It comes up like that. You go into Game Filter, and you see that filter there. And I'm going to switch between it being off and having that Sharpen Plus filter on so you can see the difference. So that's off, on, off, on. You can see there's quite a significant difference. You see pretty much the same thing if you are in a match. Alright, so I'm going to use Aberfeld to demonstrate the difference that the Engine INI file changes make. With that lovely sunset that you can see off in the distance, and you can see how no fog, everything you can see off in the distance. You can even see the last objective up there on the hill. Alright, so I've taken out those Engine INI changes, restored back to default, and you can see the difference with the fog. And that lovely sunset has disappeared. So you can make up your own mind which of those settings you prefer. So in the description of the video below, you will see some instructions on how to implement those Engine INI file changes and the lines of code that we have in that file. Thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, post them in the comments below and I will answer them.